Hey, I'm not even finished watching this video by Anton. 6 bad and dangerous geoengineering ideas meant to cool down Earth. In the past, I've mentioned a few things about how it is risky to have too many followers, to become a celebrity, even as a respected scientist or social commentator, and how, I'm not totally immune to that. Although, well, I mean, I want to believe, we all want to believe we have some immunity to this. Uh, but the kind of work I do, like right now, I should be focusing on looking for a place to go because I'm being thrown out for not being a good slave of where I've been hanging out. Um, I should be focusing on solving my own needs, but I'm not doing that as much as I'm continuing my cultural repair work, talking about the real human condition. And sometimes when I have good ideas, they have to come out. That has to be my priority instead of working on minimizing my own hardships. Because when my own hardships come very impulsively through the choices of others, it makes it harder for me to not have spent time in the last few days before that to plan for it, although I could probably predict it. Which is why it's nice to have a variety of skill sets and abilities to rely on in resiliency. One video topic I would have liked to collaborate on for a long time, not one to just talk about myself, is the onset, which I've talked about a few years ago, I think with Irina. I don't know if Glenn was involved. And it was about, I wasn't totally unconvinced that global warming wouldn't lead to an ice age very quickly, probably during the lifetime of what type of ice age, I'm not sure. How long it would last, not sure. How intense it would be, not sure. But I believe that was the possibility for a few reasons. One of them is we do not know enough about the Earth system sciences still. By the way, did anybody notice my glasses are upside down? I wanted to see if you'd only notice my hat being sideways. Did you notice my glasses? So the other things that we can't necessarily notice is our own ignorance, like even the ones of scientists, when they just refuse to be less intellectually lazy and therefore really, with every statement, not say we don't know enough, but the best we can know of there, but it could be totally wrong. And then people wouldn't listen to it anymore. Say, no, we're learning. And you should listen to us, and you should see what our learning role modeling is. Because really we've been focusing on such ridiculous ways to spend our lives and pay attention for generations and generations and generations. We're talking about thousands and thousands of years since life became the most comfortable in the biosphere for mammals like us. In the last 70,000 years, let's say, we've been living a privileged life. Not everybody, but in the sense of, life still evolving on this planet, the hardships have been minimal. And they've been minimal when we consider the concept of collective learning and independent villages who would move sometimes and stay some periods of time and then move again, but then incorporated everyone knowing a variety of skill sets and then even having travelers that caught up with them once in a while, or they were just simply living solo who spread stories and who taught things and learned things as a method of payment when they arrived in a new village. Telling stories or teaching skill sets. This is what really was one of our biggest strengths that allowed for people to have the resiliency to keep going and keep evolving. But right now we've been devolving because of things like the technologies of war, the industrial age, agriculture. Yes, agriculture has been devolving us. Do your research. To finish up on an ice age, I still believe it's possible for, very young children born today that by the time they're old, measurements may come that the Earth is now cooling, but it has nothing to do with what we did. And in fact, what we must focus on is stopping to control things, right? Micromanage everything and actually stop hurting. Because as much as you might, believe that this nation or the United Nations or that business or whatever is, working on something that'll work, often that same government, that same organization, even that same business has shares, their own shares, into companies that accelerate the Anthropocene at the same time. So again, our role as a species, especially one that refuses to develop an ecocentric worldview as it waits like deer in headlights to be killed by its own ignorance, its own communities, coming at them to kill them with a speeding car, is or fires or whatever it might be, or incompetence, just general incompetence if you even get access to certain services within your proto-societies. As we wait this, we should stop trying to control everything and start stopping to break things that have been evolving since before our species came. And also ask what's going on up here. Because, again, don't meddle with things we don't fully understand and trying to apply solutions that are not 100% solutions to us stopping the violation of the planet is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because it shows we don't admit we are at the root of the Anthropocene. And also it makes us believe we're smart enough to understand something so complex as life on this planet that has been evolving through collaborative, synergetic systems for billions of years before we came. So yes, and if there is an ice age, it would be related to systems related to the oceans. And again, we have to stop screwing up the oceans because it's possible systems exist we don't understand, where it'll be the oceans that'll return to balance that we screwed up. We have to stop breaking things. And we have to admit that some of the ways we break things is by trying to fix it. We should only fix ourselves. And the last thing I wanted to say is, I think last year I spoke that I had a solution to releasing large amounts of heat from our atmosphere into space, and that when I had this idea, I knew I had to not share it. Sharing it is dangerous if you have an ecocentric worldview. That means if you're pro-life, sharing this idea with a species that is still refusing stubbornly to undergo its own maturation process is extremely dangerous. For one thing, this idea would work in a way that it would not require, large-scale repetition of the solution. But it would require international cooperation, something we're not capable of, as you can tell by watching the news every day. The other, capitalism doesn't help. Also, not challenging the incongruences of the United Nations doesn't help. But also the things I've talked about so far. So if I mention this idea, even if it got implemented, but we didn't realize and apply the other things we talked about, it would be disastrous because then it would collapse the balancing of these systems that we still don't understand in ways that's even worse. Because if I gave this idea, I would have to ask my species to promise to just apply it for a short term as a short-term solution. It would not. It would agree, but it would break that promise because that's who you are. So of course I'm pro-life. I can't give you this idea. Whether it works or not doesn't matter. I don't want to give you the idea to even think about it, and maybe somebody's going to try it. And it doesn't require as much income as some of the other ridiculous ideas to make it happen that are, talked about today. So again, this would be extremely dangerous for me to share. And you'd say, Martin, you're a traitor to your own species. Or some people would say traitor to life because they only see life as this failed proto-species that I belong to that is never really, when given the gift of this potential, never really done the work to fully mature and self-actualize in its own potential. Yes, I'm ashamed of the time we live in, but I'm not going to participate in the breakages to have a little bit less hardships.